In late July 2025, former President Donald Trump, the leading Republican candidate, drops a bombshell on U.S.-Canada relations. "I don't expect a deal with Canada. If they don't act, we'll protect American workers at all costs." His threat to impose a 35% tariff on all Canadian goods, including those under the USMCA, starting August 1, 2025, shakes North America. As an economic strategist with 30 years of experience, I see this as a daring, calculated move to pressure Canada, bolster Trump's political standing, and reshape global trade. But is this a brilliant leverage tactic or a reckless gamble that could unravel the USMCA and spark a trade war? Let's dive into Trump's motives, Canada's response, and the hope for a fairer trade future. In late July 2025, U.S.-Canada relations teeter on the brink as Trump declares on Truth Social that he'll slap a 35% tariff on all Canadian goods if Ottawa doesn't meet trade demands by August 1, 2025. Unlike earlier threats, 25% on non-USMCA goods, 10% on energy. This targets even USMCA-protected products, the agreement Trump once hailed as a historic achievement. His stated reasons? Canada's alleged failure to curb fentanyl and trade barriers like 250% dairy tariffs and lumber subsidies. Yet, DEA data shows fentanyl from Canada accounts for less than 5% of illegal U.S. supply, compared to 80% from Mexico, suggesting this is a pretext for pressure. Trump's hardline stance, "If they don't play fair, we'll play our way," signals a shift from negotiation to confrontation, raising fears of a new trade war that could shatter USMCA's stability after over 5 years. The big question, is Trump setting a trap to corner Canada before the deadline? Or is he rewriting the regional trade playbook? With his sharp business instincts, Trump doesn't act randomly. The 35% tariff is part of his reciprocal trade strategy, targeting nations like Canada, the EU, and China to open markets. This move offers 3 strategic benefits. Negotiation leverage. The 35% tariff is a powerful tool to force Canada to lower 250% dairy tariffs, lumber subsidies, or tighten border controls. Trump's past success, Ontario pausing an electricity surcharge in March 2025 after a steel tariff threat, shows he uses threats to extract concessions. The August 1st deadline creates time pressure, forcing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to choose between compromise and confrontation. Domestic political heat. As a presidential candidate, Trump uses tariffs to rally voters in states like Wisconsin, dairy, Michigan, autos, and Idaho, lumber. By blaming Canada, he shifts focus from domestic inflation to unfair trade, reinforcing his America First mantra for the 2026 elections. Global message. The 35% tariff warns partners like the EU, 30% tariffs, and China, 145% tariffs, that Trump won't tolerate trade barriers, aiming to reshape global commerce in America's favor. The risks are high. Taxing USMCA goods could be seen as violating the agreement, inviting legal disputes or retaliation from Canada and Mexico. Rising prices, like lumber increasing home construction costs by $7,000 to $12,000, could alienate middle-class voters. Is Trump playing a risky game? Fair Canada, with $761.8 billion in bilateral trade with the U.S. in 2024, faces severe risks. Lumber industry, exporting $14 billion in softwood lumber, 30% of U.S. construction supply, a 35% tariff would erode competitiveness. Firms like Canfor and West Fraser saw 20% profit drops in March 2025 from tariff fears. Dairy industry. With $1.2 billion in dairy exports, a 35% tariff would make Canadian dairy unaffordable, pushing U.S. consumers to domestic or Mexican sources, hurting Quebec farmers. Energy sector. Canada supplies 40% of U.S. crude oil. A 35% tariff on USMCA goods could raise fuel prices, impacting both nations. Overall economy. Canada's GDP could shrink 2 to 3%, with the CAD dropping 6% post-announcement. Canada's 25% retaliatory tariffs on $20.7 billion in U.S. goods in March 2025 may expand, hitting states like California and Florida. For the U.S., American consumers and businesses face fallout. Rising home costs. Canadian lumber accounts for 15% of construction costs. A 35% tariff could raise lumber prices 35%, adding $7,000, $12,000 per home, slowing markets in Texas and Georgia. Food prices. A 35% tariff on Canadian dairy could spike milk prices 15 to 20%, hitting low-income families. Inflation. Disrupting Canada's energy and fertilizer supply could push U.S. inflation up 1 to 2%, per World Bank forecasts. Financial markets. The S&P 500 fell 4% after Trump's statement, reflecting investor fears of a trade war. Global ripple effects. The 35% tariff creates a domino effect. Alternative lumber suppliers like Brazil or Russia may benefit, but at higher costs. The EU and Mexico, facing Trump's tariffs, fear a global trade war. European stock indices dropped 2%, and the USD surged, amplifying economic uncertainty. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau fired back, calling Trump's claims baseless and highlighting Canada's fentanyl control efforts. In a July 26, 2025 speech, he vowed, "Canada won't bow to pressure. We'll protect our farmers and businesses." Canada's 25% retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods in March 2025 may expand, targeting items like wine and autos from U.S. swing states. Ottawa's Buy Canadian campaign and outreach to Asian markets like Japan and South Korea face hurdles as the U.S. absorbs 75% of Canada's exports. Ex-posts suggest Canada may sue the U.S. at the WTO, but slow proceedings limit its impact before the deadline. Trudeau faces domestic pressure from opposition and businesses reliant on the U.S., caught between conceding to Trump or holding firm at economic cost. Though no longer president, Trump wields tariffs as a political weapon. The threat targets Republican voters in states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, impacted by Canada's trade barriers. Trump rallies voters, protecting U.S. workers, wins support from farmers and laborers, deflects criticism, blaming Canada, shifts focus from domestic inflation, builds campaign momentum. As a top candidate, Trump projects strength against international rivals. Yet, Republican senators like Susan Collins back the Canada Act to shield small businesses relying on Canadian goods. Rising prices could erode middle-class support, weakening Trump's campaign. Trump aims to reshape global trade, forcing open markets. If successful, the 35% tariff could push Canada to cut dairy tariffs or lumber subsidies, paving the way for USMCA talks in 2026. But breaching USMCA risks legal disputes and weakens a key Trump achievement. Economists predict a $1,500 cost of living increase per U.S. household in 2025. Can Trump turn this threat into a trade win, or will it unleash economic turmoil? Trump's 35% tariff threat is a bold, risky move with immense potential. This isn't just a trade clash, it's a tale of power, justice, and resilience. With strategic flair, Trump uses tariffs to pressure Canada, fuel his campaign, and inspire a fairer trade order. Whatever the outcome, this saga shows that bold actions in a turbulent world can ignite hope for a brighter future.